welcome to Values and Vibes. Today we're going to talk about adventure as a value with my two favorite guests, Lancaster, CEO and founder of Revalue 180, and Louisa Bulow, business psychologist. Together, we're going to discover why it's important to take risks, to explore, to step out of comfort zone. So sit back and enjoy while we're discovering why embracing adventure can help us to live life to the fullest. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to this episode. Today we're going to talk about adventure as a value with my two favorite guests, Lancaster and Louisa Bulow. So why don't we just start? Can somebody explain what is adventure as a value?
Our model definition of adventure is to actively seek or create novel or exciting experiences. So
interesting about adventure, I think I see that off a lot of times in high stakes professional. Obviously I can't speak for the world of high stakes professionals, but in my personal knowledge experience of running the model for almost 5 years now, that's offered a lost or forgotten value for a lot of people that are very highly regulated. So they sit usually in regulation and personal empowerment, which sit right next to each other, at least a lot of American high stakes professionals. And that leaves oftentimes openness where adventure sits to be some value areas that I think are often maybe ignored or forgotten about a little bit in people's lives because they really haven't made the time for it because they're too busy working and trying to be successful and earn a living for themselves, them families, what have you. You're just getting like you get
you're zoomed in, hyper detail focused. Lawyers should have forest. Lawyers should have it because actually they need to be able to zoom themselves in. So the blockers aren't always bad. There's a production.
No, once again, it's how they manifest in your life. And which apparently, I don't know, maybe adventure was a lost forgotten. I don't remember what sort it was for me. That's interesting. So yeah, so I don't know if you chose forest, Milena. Did you? I don't remember.
Honestly, I think I am. And now when you're explaining, I see why I chose that. I literally see. Yeah, especially because because now I'm a mother, I'm always seeing that something bad is gonna happen. I don't see like Ned. He's oh, it's gonna be amazing. There's gonna stop the storm. It's gonna be snowing. We're gonna ski. Of course, I didn't ski because I have a baby. But I would like to change that. If you ask me, I would like to change that to be more adventure, to have more like to express adventure spirit.
But maybe you don't need to because maybe then you're gonna be balancing Ned.
Tia, what was guess what the first value you threw out of all of them was?
Adventure?
No way, Tia.
You are severely blocking that value.
Oh my God. I guess that's a lost forgotten value for me. I thought it was so adventurous moving to new cities and whatnot.
But wait, here's the question though. Who initiates the move? It's normally Colin, right? Based on work.
Kind of, except that I'm not exactly not pushing him. You know what I mean?
No, but that's more, for me, that's excitement. I reckon excitement is that the value you're more talking about because you're enjoying the thrill of that move, but you're not the one who's actively finding the location and saying to Colin,
same with me.
So perhaps it's a different, let's see where your excitement was.
We just ride on that adventure train, Milena.
Yeah, I'm just like, should we pick now or tomorrow? Because I don't know when we're traveling. No, but honestly,
I reckon it is that. It's excitement.
Probably. Yeah.
But Louisa, how I can say no? Ned, he chose the place. He find apartment. He's gonna do everything, and then I just need to carry Iris with me, and that's it. And
that's your balance with the responsibility.
Yeah, it is.
He was able to show enough of a responsibility within it. So you went, all right, cool. But if he just said, walk out the door now, grab the baby, you had no flights booked, no hotel, nothing, you wouldn't have gone. So there's balance with it.
Honestly, I would go because I'm familiar.
That's trust. You trust him.
Yes, you would go, but then you also know that you're regulated enough that you'd be taking care of everything, kind of like when we were in Italy. Ned just goes, and he just knows that, yes, you'll go. But that's then where sometimes we become, because that's also, you're very probably are pretty strong in global vision and giving to others. That's where we can become victimized martyrs, because we're going along. And we're not always really that happy. Like that's a lot of me with Colin, to be fair. Like I spent many more hours in a club in our 40s with his like trading teams than I wanted to be in. I ended up just counseling bottle service girls. But, but I was there and I was like the dutiful wife, at the club. But I was also probably a little bit of a martyr and victimizing myself. So I think it's a fun value to open up for people, truly.
I think there's an aspect of a thrill-seeking side to this value too. So we have values which are centered more around creativity or curiosity and things like that, and openness, which are about novel experiences. A lot of values and openness can relate to novelty or newness, different experiences. But this one is very much more about pushing boundaries, like pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. So it's not just like, oh, shall I put extra creamer in my coffee today? That's adventurous. It's like, well, maybe that is for some people, but it really is about pushing yourself outside of what feels comfortable.
Yeah, it is. And I actually think that for people who maybe that was something that was important to them when they were young and really has been pushed aside, that would probably really create a sense of feeling maybe some sadness, just maybe even some anxiety, because some of that adventure probably helped them get out some that stress you're carrying around. I mean, some people, I had a friend, they don't see that much these days, but when I was living in another state a long time ago, that was very much into like skydiving. Now, to me, that seems like a great adventure that I can just skip in my life. However, it was really kind of part of her personality. She did it a lot when she was young. I'm not saying everyone needs to go skydive, but I think that if you're not going to skydive, but that's something that you really got a big adrenaline rush out and you enjoyed, then you're probably going to have to look for something similar to that to satisfy that adventure kind of adventurous spirit that you might have.
Yeah.
Can adventure affect how we make decisions and how we grow as individuals?
I think for sure, because I think that like me, even as being the older of the three of us, I would say that it's been quite an adventure for me to launch Revaluate 180. And I'm not sure, it wasn't really a lost, forgotten value for me, but I'm almost fairly certain it was not in my prioritized group. So it was an early sort that I left off.
I think mine was an earlier one that I discarded.
Yeah. And I think that probably for me, this has been kind of an adventure. I mean, it's not always, I don't think adventures are always filled with pure joy all the time, because there's a lot of anxiety and stress that goes along with having a startup and running a new company. But I definitely think that you have to engage in an adventurous spirit if you're going to launch something into the world that's completely new in a sense, and get people to actually bite on and be interested in it. And I think even more to that, you have to be adventurous enough to get others, like the two of you, to jump off the diving board into the deep end with me. So I think that definitely, yes, I think that adventure can drive a lot of ambition in people.
I agree with that. I think as well, people who tend to have adventure as a value, remember it's actively seeking out these experiences that are new and they're exciting to you. So we actually have a value which is about excitement, which is just enjoying the thrill of the moment when you're in it. But the adventure is that active ability to go out and seek it. So individuals who have that probably are more open-minded to all the different doors they see and all the different routes they see, and they're just more prepared to go down them. And I think it was one for me, which is interesting because I just went away for a couple of weeks backpacking in the Philippines. And I know that if it wasn't lost or forgotten value, it's a value I've not activated for a long time. And I actually do sit heavier in regulation. But to go and do that is really just, for me, is like, brilliant. That's me done, tick for another year. Let that go. For some people, it's okay, well, they literally will get off that 2-week tour, go, where am I going next? And it creates that ambition from looking looking for what's out there, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that you have to have an adventurous spirit. I think it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's the same as courage, because I think that courage is one of those, like we've talked about, one of those very instrumental values that you need to have in order to activate a lot of them. But adventure borders that a little bit, because there's things in your life that you just kind of have been ignoring, or you're afraid to experience, or you don't think you can dip your toe back into that water. I think that if you can pull out a little bit of that adventurous spirit, you probably gain a lot from that adventure.
Yeah, and courage is about when you're faced with adversity as well, right? To keep going and to face it, essentially, to look at
Right.
the adversity in front of you, whereas that doesn't necessarily need to come into adventure. And we talk a lot about how openness is the zone that can be the most selfish, because actually we're putting our pleasurable experiences at the expense of the needs and sufferings of others a lot of the time, because not on purpose, it's not malicious, none of the zones are malicious, we don't know that we're doing it. And if I have an adventurous spirit and I'm going on holidays every other day, every minute, every chance I get, what does that look like to my work or to the people around me? Where is that stability or that order? So I think it gets too, like we always say this, we've come to it already, but if you take the value too far,
Yep,
it can be counterproductive.
can work against you because it's obviously going to cut into like making a living and spending time with your loved ones and all of those things. But yes, I think so.
Yeah.
But tell me, when adventure is a core value, how might it influence career choices?
I think that probably people who have some adventure in them would be willing to do wouldn't pick a traditional job route per se. I think people who know they always wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer, they have a safe plan. They know they're going to do this. I think
Yeah.
if I was going to look at people in my life, my daughter who's a writer, I think that she has an adventurous spirit. I think that if you're going to choose something a little less known, like a road a little less traveled, as they would say, then I think that you need to have adventure in as probably close to being at least a prioritized value for you, because it's not always the traditional route, I think, as far as careers might go. I think, I can't say that with any proof, but
No, I'd probably agree with that, just out of pure opinion, as you're saying, Tia. But like also people with adventure, I would imagine, are more prepared to switch career paths or try something new or go somewhere else. Whereas those who are more in regulation, there's almost a fear of the unknown, and openness is a thirst for the unknown. It's like, well, where could this take
exactly,
me?
and it's right smack dab there in Oakland. So yeah, I think it's probably a good value to have if it's a core value for you. If for people who are making changes, I mean, there's a lot of there's something in the workplace. They say that women do better than men, and I think it's because women have had to do this. I think that men sometimes stick into like traditional roles or stay in places for a long time because they're not dipping in and out of the market to bear children typically. So women, as we've progressed through the years and become, more, when there's been more equality for us, there's always still going to be that push and pull of not really always feeling like fully equal, because right now we are still, oftentimes, unless we're adopting or have a surrogate, giving birth to these children, but we have to be somewhat adventurous because women then come back into the job market and they do something called job crafting. And they do that a lot better than men, because guess what? They've got to be creative. They're like, well, the baby has to be fed this time and I can't really bring my pump to work and I have to do this. But so I think that whether you want to or not, adventure might become something that you have to learn how to use if you're going to be a woman who's doing it all, raising children, having a busy career.
They need to balance that too with a lot of values and regulation, because like we said, too much of that adventure isn't going to create any of that routine and that structure that you just said. So there has to be regulation that comes into that as well.
You have to have an adventurous mind or spirit to come up with a situation that could work. But amidst that, you're right, they're going to have to find that imperfect balance we talk about between the two, so they can maintain the adventure of maybe crafting some new exciting job. And I'm not saying only women do that. I'm sure many men do that, but I think that women have had to be a little more crafty to keep themselves on equal footing.
But it's that active part of adventure, which I think is interesting with this value. So there's the adventurous spirit, and then they do something about it and they put themselves in these situations where it almost gets unleashed. That's the next step of this value being activated. So people who do actually take it over the line and do something with it. And I actually envy people who have that adventure value as something that's very natural to them, because I know that I have parts of this value that will become important at certain moments in my life. I love traveling. I love putting myself in situations that are maybe a little bit daring, that do push me out my comfort zone, but I only like to do it for a little bit. And then I kind of like, because I am heavy in regulation, I like to come like creep my way back into something I know. But the feeling like when I'm activating adventure, and I know excitement is also one of my values. So, and then when I'm in it, so excitement, I'm actually enjoying the thrill. I'm like, whoo, but I have an off switch. I'm like, okay, that's enough. So I do envy it a little bit.
That's interesting. Like, you made me think of something when as we were discussing before we started filming, we were talking about daughters, and I have 3 of them and additional ones in my life. And proxy ones. And I remember, I think I'm more adventurous than I might even know of myself, because maybe I just ignore that value because it's something I do. I mean, I've always enjoyed like relocating to a new place. I like the adventure of it. I like getting to know a new place, a new city, new people, figuring it out, learning my way around. And I remember Maria, could be my most challenging sometimes, my most rewarding sometimes as well, but my most challenging, said to me, when we were moving to London from Chicago, she's like, you're not attached to anything. You don't like anything. You just want to move and leave and go to a new place. And I remember I thought about that for a long time. And I did go back to her and I was like, I see what you're saying. I mean, it is nice to have that mother family type who likes to have that house and one place in the universe. And that's always where everyone goes back to. I said, but I guess I enjoy the adventure of new places and new experiences and new people. So I actually use that word.
I think you're like me though, because you just said it there, and knowing you is like, you said, and then I figure it out. But that's the bit that you really do. Once you've located, you have everything you possibly need in that place,
organized.
and your life is in order. Your shit is together once you've got there.
I agree.
So I think the adventure is getting there, and then you like to regulate.
You're
a bit like me.
I mean, I'm not, because because at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Because I think an adventurous spirit is often a little bit more of a risk taker as far as, I mean, in their lives, like, oh, maybe when I was younger, I mean, if I had like violated a rule of my very strict Italian Catholic mother, I would have rather like not gone home, because I wasn't going to engage in some adventure that could get me into problems or trouble. So yeah, you're right. So I adventure with highly regulated guardrails.
But the epitome of this value is my sister. So she has this adventurous, free spirit, and she has a family and children in the UK and a full-time job. So her best friend is a air hostess, and if she gets a free ticket to go somewhere, my sister's gone. She's just gone on that. She's like, well, it's a free ticket to go there and I'll work it out. And it is enviable in a way to do that. That stresses me almost, but she's away at the moment. She's literally gone now. And that's maybe the 3rd time this year. And good for her that she has that, but she has that thirst. And if she's not in the UK, like if she's in the UK and that opportunity disappeared, that would be such a value conflict for her. So I think she literally is this value.
You're right. So that's probably why you're right, because I would still have to be micromanaging my children and making sure that everything was set. So you're right.
And I'm like that too. I like the adventure, and then I'm like, okay, woof, calm.
Very true.
But maybe then you can help me, because like those questions, like I'm asking for my friend, so I know a couple. But I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm asking for me and my husband, because my husband, he have more adventurous like spirit, and I'm more stable. I prefer, I'm if you ask me, I'm a little bit boring, because I love to know what's going to happen next. And my husband, because he's a former tennis player, and he needs to win. He's like a visionary, like he needs to make it 100 times better, like. And sometimes I'm like scared of him, like what he's gonna decide, like your sister, what he's gonna decide now, where we're gonna move, and then when he make that choice for me, I'm like, oh, this is nice, like this was a good decision. So how do you have any like like what would you suggest, what would be better for us to be more balanced, like, because I prefer stability and he's probably prioritizes more
but I think that's why you've found each other, because you bring each other somewhere in the middle as an anchor. So my brother-in-law is the complete opposite to the spirit my sister has. But if you talk to him about it, and I have talked to him about it, he'll be like, well, she's going to want to do it anyway. So why not just let her go in this moment? Let her have that, and she'll enjoy it, and it's great, and that's fantastic. He supports it, right? But for him, no. He has an Excel spreadsheet on every single thing in the world, basically. He's the most organized, routine-driven person ever, and they work really well. It's like, I'm probably more adventurous than Rich is, so I know that we're never going to up and leave and move somewhere else. Whereas if he asked me, I'd go. So I think it helps you strike that balance in the middle.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know Ned quite well, and he's kind of, he's very much Peter Pan. Like in some way, he has a Peter Pan mentality, which is great because everything is exciting and new and fresh. And I think there's such joy in that, because, you know, that's going to uncover a lot of joy for your daughter, for Erdis, because she can, you know, he's going to make every situation an adventure and exciting. I think that it's probably already happened a lot in some ways with someone like Ned, and I just know him quite well personally, that I think when you do have a family and some of your choices have sometimes negative consequences on the dynamics of the rest of the family, that's when some of that is reined in. I think it's important that you don't quell, you know, completely, you know, stamp on, which you don't do. If anything, I think you could do more of it sometimes, because maybe sometimes then when you have an adventurer with somebody who's much more regulated and wants to have things laid out, one of them is going to get disappointed, but that's just human beings. None of us are exactly the same. But I think a lot of that is just going to be naturally heal itself in some ways, because he's going to realize that Erdis has a choir concert at school, or she has a tennis match or a tennis tournament, and you know, there's just going to be more qualifications to his schedule. Now, I guess in Louisa's case, the brother-in-law is just willing to pick up the slack of that, and it hasn't really had a huge impact on them. So I guess every couple is different, but it's just going to depend on whether or not he will want to miss some of those moments, because I think that's going to be how a compromise is formed. And maybe your sister as well too, because the kids aren't that old yet. How old is the school age? Are they school age yet?
Just, yeah.
Yeah. So some of that will be interesting to watch. Some of that will change.
Oh, for sure. But I think it's fascinating just generally about values. I don't understand that mentality. It doesn't compute for me to be able to go off like that and not know when my flight home is, for example. And I actually would say I'm quite a free spirit, but I do like to know I like my boundaries, and then I'll do whatever
once again, back to safety, you know, how kind of even like saving your money and whatnot, that's that's a safety thing. And I think I have the same. I think that adventure, and I think that someone like Ned, who we're talking about here, who's Milena's husband, I think that he is safe, and he's extremely loving and caring of everybody. So I think that his safety defense is going to kind of it's going to start to fall back when his adventure kicks in. I don't know, have you seen that at all? I think
honestly, when I speak with anybody, they're like, when they speak about my husband, or when they speak about anybody who have like adventure spirit, you know, they're like always like, oh, he have or she have a adventure spirit, he's not responsible, you know. So I don't know why people are making connection with that, because if you have adventure spirit, that's what you need. You need a little bit dose of stress, you know, like to not be familiar what's gonna happen, because if you want to get some experience, you need to move, you need to jump on it, you know, like you need to make a podcast.
The counter to that with the responsibility, though, responsibility is a value that sits in regulation, and if you have too much adventure and you completely block out any responsibility, I see it as more of a, what do you look like to other people? So if you're constantly out doing whatever it is, what we say, actively seeking and creating novel or exciting experiences, all for yourself, here and there and everywhere, how are you showing any responsibility for what you need to do back at home or in your job?
I mean, in other parts of your life? And obviously, and that lies in the individual themselves too. I mean, we can't look on the outside and see, but you're right. That's where that balance comes in, or the perfect imbalance. I think if responsibilities start to suffer, then a marriage will start to suffer, and other people around you are going to start to suffer. And then that's exactly when that happens, when your experiences are coming at the expense of other people in your life. So I don't think they have to go hand in hand. I don't think you have to have an adventure. And then it means you're going to be irresponsible. I think that could happen if you're overly adventurous and you're not thinking enough about the others in your life. So,
but let me just give you an example just to understand what, like to better know my husband, because just imagine a day we're working, and it's like 5 p.m. and we live in Miami, and it's really hot, and he just got email that there is like some storm in next to Lake Tahoe, and he's just like, oh, why don't we just go, and there's gonna probably be snow. And I said, okay, when? Let's go tomorrow. And I said, yes, but I don't have clothes, we're literally every day in flip-flops and bathing suit, And he's like, oh, we're just gonna buy it, don't worry, and I have a baby and I'm breastfeeding. I need to pack her, like
you're going to the winter.
Yeah, but I need to make it happen, So then we realized that there is like only one store in Miami that it's working, and they're selling like ski suits, like boots and everything. And of course, it's 5 p.m., and they're open like until 6. So we're driving like crazy because we bought a ticket already. And I said, but why did you buy, why did you buy a ticket? We don't.
I remember getting the pictures of that. And I was like, say to Colin, go, are they in snow? Like, where are they?
Yes. So then we're like, and of course we don't even have a direct flight to Lake Tahoe, I'm like, what are we doing? And he's like, oh, let's just make a new experience. And then we go there. It was amazing. I would regret if we didn't go there, because it was so beautiful, especially when you're coming like from summer vacation every day, from endless summer from Miami. And then when I'm coming back, I'm tired, exhausted, and everything. But I would never do that. If you ask me, I would never do it, because of my boundaries and everything. Is it safe? Is it stable? Should we do this? And then I just like give up. So if you can help me to tell me what can block my adventure spirit from a model, like what?
No, do you know what, Tia? It's actually Forest, your blocker. But yeah, Forest is when you try to eliminate one risk, essentially, rather than looking at the bigger picture. So you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
My last question would be, did both of you choose adventure as a core value? And if not, what led each of you to make those decisions?
Well, apparently I did not, since I removed it first. So I guess I will leave that. And in my mind, if I was going to answer that, and then I'll let Louisa take over since I removed it first, I kind of maybe found the values that I removed first, I somewhat find superfluous in my life, almost like it's like extra. So for me, I guess it was extra. So I don't know. And I don't know if that's because I have enough adventure or I don't have enough. I actually haven't really
Well, we know it's being blocked either way. So it's interesting. Maybe because and I get it why Forest is there, because you lose a sense of actively seeking novel experiences if you don't know all of the details, right? So maybe there is an aspect. I think it's excitement.
I mean, and I also did choose the odds blocker, and maybe that goes along, like, even though it's another zone, I worry about like very low risk things happening, like a vending machine falling on top of one of my kids that are using it, like at an arena, like, you know what I mean, a sporting arena, but other parents might not even think about that. So that could kind of, it's different because it's in a different zone. But I'm just wondering if those mental things are crossing for me.
Maybe. For me, it's one of my penultimate 16 values. And I think it goes to what, I just got my data up. I think it goes to what I've been saying. I have a very good relationship with adventure. I can feel very fulfilled, and I know my boundary and when to activate it. So I have quite a balanced profile, but openness is just my lightest zone. So I know that there's sometimes I'm not doing enough of some of those values, but I have the anchor blocker. So actually there's some of the curiosity, creativity side of me that's blocked.
And that is true. And it does go, because I remember when you said you were going with your friends to Philippines, it's like a long trip. It's a long trip, even just to be away from just everything, your life. And that's, and you did do that. So maybe that's interesting.
And I didn't think about that. I honestly
Yeah.
just thought, I'm going away with two of my best friends and I'm going to a beautiful place. And I honestly felt like, and I need this. I need to get out. So I've always done a lot of charity trips. So raise money, and I went to Peru and went to Thailand and did like staying in a hostel, looking after people, things like this. I've always done that. And that was my sense of adventure. It was a way of having adventure, but giving back. And I've done that a lot. And I hadn't done it for a while, and especially after the pandemic, I had this real thirst to go. So when my friend said she was going, I went for a coffee with her. She told me about it. She'd been researching it for months, and she went, I found the best company. I want to do it with them, and we're going to do this. And I was like, can I come? Yes. You have to pay your deposit today, though. Okay. Paid my deposit. Went home. Rich. I'm going to the Philippines in November for 2 weeks. That was literally how it happened, because I think I just have a good relationship with that value. Whereas other things I will be more balanced with. So yeah, it's interesting.
I didn't choose adventure because I think I have too many adventures per hour with my husband. So I was like, I'm choosing safety and stability.
Exactly. Rules. Anyway, well,
I'm a
thanks
mother.
everyone. Yeah, exactly. Mother first.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank
you.
Bye. Thank you.